Higher education in Ontario includes post-secondary education and skills training regulated by the Ministry of Training, colleges, and universities and provided by universities, colleges of applied arts and technology, and private career colleges. The current minister is Reza Moridi, who was appointed in June 2014. The ministry administers laws covering 22 public universities, 24 public colleges and 3 institutes of technology and advanced learning, 17 privately funded religious universities, and over 500 private career colleges. 18 of the top 50 research universities in Canada are in Ontario. The Constitution of Canada provides each province with the responsibility for higher education, and there is no corresponding national federal Ministry of Higher Education. Within Canadian federalism, the division of responsibilities and taxing powers between the Ontario and Canadian governments creates the need for cooperation to fund and deliver higher education to students. Each higher education system aims to improve participation, access, and mobility for students. There are 2 central organizations that assist with the process of applying to Ontario universities and colleges: the Ontario Universities Application Centre and Ontario College Application Service. While application services are centralized, admission and selection processes vary and the purview of each institution independently. Admission to many Ontario post-secondary institutions can be highly competitive. Upon admission, students may get involved with regional student representation with the Canadian Federation of Students, the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations, the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance, or through the College Student Alliance in Ontario. History: Pre-Confederation, 1791 to 1866. The Constitutional Act of 1791 by the British House of Commons divided the old province of Quebec into 2 British colonies. The Western colony became Upper Canada, with John Graves Simcoe as its first head of state by fulfilling the role of lieutenant governor. Governor Simcoe was the first advocate for establishing educational institutions in the new colony to increase citizens' connection to Britain and prevent the incursion of influence from post-revolutionary schools in the United States. In 1797, the Duke of Portland agreed, on behalf of the British King, to the request from the Legislative Council and House of Assembly of Upper Canada for a portion of Crown land to support the foundation of grammar schools and a college or university. Higher education preceded Canadian Confederation with the establishment of private and sectarian universities in Ontario during the early 19th century. Initially, Ontario's first 3 universities were formed with religious affiliations. Established in 1827, King's College was associated with the Church of England through its first president, John Strachan. The Presbyterian Church established Queen's University in 1841. In addition, the Roman Catholic Missionary Oblates of Mary Immaculate established the College of B-Town in 1848. In 1849, the government of Upper Canada decided to secularize King's College and the institution became the University of Toronto. In 1866, the College of B-Town completed its conversion to the University of Ottawa through incorporation by royal charter from the government in London, England. Post-Confederation 1867 to 1899. In 1867, Section 91 of the Canadian Constitution established that the Government of Canada has responsibility for trade and commerce, whereas Section 93 conferred to each province responsibility for education. Higher education in Canada reflects this division of powers in Canadian federalism through the overlapping of interests and responsibilities between the provinces and the federal presence in higher education in Canada. In 1868, the province of Ontario withdrew financial support for religious universities. In 1874, the Canadian government established the first federal institution of higher education in Kingston, Ontario, the Royal Military College of Canada. In 1876, the Ontario Society of Artists founded the forerunner to the Ontario College of Art and Amp Design at the Toronto Normal School. In 1878, Bishop Isaac Helmuth founded the Western University of London, with religious affiliation to the Anglican Diocese of Huron, and later the institution became the non-denominational University of Western Ontario. In 1887, William McMaster founded McMaster University by merging Toronto Baptist College and Woodstock College. By 1899, there were 7 higher education institutions established in Ontario. Early 20th century, 1900 to 1945. In 1900, the Dominican Order established the Dominican College of Philosophy and Theology that later became the Dominican University College. In 1906, controversy over the role of the Ontario government and the leadership of the University of Toronto led to the Flavel Commission that articulated a separation of powers, resulting in the widespread adoption of the bicameral model for university governance in Canada. In 1911, the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Canada founded the Waterloo Lutheran Seminary that was associated with the development of the University of Waterloo and Wilfrid Laurier University. Higher education was a low priority under the provincial government of Mitchell Hepburn due to the effects of the Depression, but universities supported the national war effort through funding from the Government of Canada. In 1942, the Ottawa Association for the Advancement of Learning established the non-denominational Carleton College that later became Carleton University. By 1945, there were 3 publicly supported secular universities, 6 denominational private colleges, and several vocational institutes. In 1946, the Government of Ontario established the Lakehead Technical Institute in Port Arthur that later became Lakehead University. In 1948, Howard Hillenker persuaded the Government of Ontario to turn the Training and Re-establishment Institute for Veterans into the Ryerson Institute of Technology. Over the following 45 years, the institute expanded its vocational focus to become Ryerson University. In 1951, the provincial government hired a part-time consultant on higher education policy matters to support the Minister of Education, given that no office in the government or agency had ever had full responsibility for the sector. In 1956, Premier Leslie Frost replaced the consultant with a committee of senior government officials who served 2 years before being replaced by civil servants from the government departments of economics, education and treasury who made up the university committee. In 1957, Jerry Hayes, Ira Needles, and Rev. Cornelius Siegfried founded the Waterloo College Associate Faculties that later became the University of Waterloo. In 1959, the Government of Ontario established York University and Murray Ross served as the founding president. By 1960, there were 5 publicly supported secular universities. In 1960, the Government of Ontario established Laurentian University as a bilingual federation representing Roman Catholic, United, and Anglican religious affiliations. In 1961, the government expanded and changed the University Committee into an advisory committee on university affairs consisting of civil servants and non-government members. In 1962, the Government of Ontario formed the University of Windsor as part of turning Assumption University into a federated institution. By 1963, Ontario's post-secondary system consisted of 14 universities, 7 institutes of technology, 11 teachers' colleges, almost 60 hospital schools of nursing, and the Ontario College of Art. In 1964, the government introduced a Department of University Affairs within the Ministry of Education under Minister Bill Davis. In the same year, the provincial government founded Brock University, named after Sir Isaac Brock, the University of Guelph, through integrating 3 institutions, and Trent University. In the mid-1960s, the Government of Ontario passed legislation to establish a new category of post-secondary institutions called Colleges of Applied Arts and Technology, with an emphasis on vocational, technological, and general education. In 1966, the provincial government began to establish an applied arts college system, with the Centennial College of Applied Arts and Technology as the first college. In 1967, the Government of Ontario established 23 more CAATs. The universities retained a monopoly over the right to grant degrees, and the government defined clear non-degree granting mandates for the CAATs, thereby creating a binary system of higher education within Ontario. Also in 1967, the Government of Ontario responded to citizens' interest to form Algoma College, which became a university in 2008. In addition, the government formed Nipissing College in affiliation with Laurentian University. In 1992, the provincial government converted Nipissing College into Nipissing University. The 1995 Ontario general election provided a large majority for the new Mike Harris government. After 1995, the provincial government undertook actions that led to increased privatization within higher education, blurred boundaries in the binary structure, institutional differentiation, and the overall system's expansion. In 1996, the Ontario Ministry of Education and Training released the first review of higher education as a system. Early 21st century, 2000 present. By 2000, there were a total of 20 public universities established in Ontario. In 2002, the Government of Ontario created the University of Ontario Institute of Technology to increase supply and address a change in the Ontario academic credit system that created a double cohort of students entering post-secondary education. In 2005, the Honourable Bob Rae released a comprehensive review of post-secondary education entitled Ontario, a Leader in Learning, more commonly known as the Rae Report, a Rae Review. Within 4 months of its release, the provincial government of Premier Dalton McGuinty implemented an investment plan for post-secondary education called Reaching Higher, outlining its strategy until 2010. As part of this plan, the provincial government accepted a recommendation of the Rae Report to establish the Higher Education Quality Council of Ontario as an independent advisory agency. On June 18, 2008, the provincial government converted Algoma University College into Algoma University. In 2000, the Ministry of Training, Colleges and Universities authorized Ontario's Colleges of Applied Arts and Technology to offer a limited number of applied baccalaureate degrees, under the Post-Secondary Education Choice and Excellence Act, 2000. Ontario Provincial Government and Post-Secondary Education, 1943. Present governance. The higher education system in Ontario includes the interaction among government, external advisory bodies, educational institutions, and associations. The Canadian Constitution allocates final authority for higher education in Ontario to the provincial government. In practice, the responsibility lies with the Minister of Training, Colleges, and Universities, who is a member of the Executive Council of Ontario, reporting to the Premier and held accountable by the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. The Deputy Minister manages the operations of the ministry that includes 5 main divisions. As a whole, the ministry has responsibility for administration of laws relating to post-secondary education and skills training in Ontario. The divisions cover employment and training, post-secondary education, strategic policy and programs, corporate management and services, and French language education and educational operations. The divisions report to the Deputy Minister, who then reports to the Minister. The Ministry of Training, Colleges, and Universities works with several external advisory bodies to assist the governance of the higher education system in Ontario. Governance within Ontario universities generally follows a bicameral approach with separation of authority between a board and Senate structure. Ontario has a binary public post-secondary education structure consisting of parallel college and university systems. The public college system comprises 21 colleges of applied arts and technology and 3 institutes of technology and advanced learning. The public university system comprises 22 universities. Some universities have federated and/or affiliated colleges which are considered part of the public university system. In addition, there are 17 private religious universities and over 500 private career colleges that are not classified as universities. Ontario's private career colleges provide specific skills training for employment and must be registered with the Ministry of Training, Colleges and Universities. A program run by Service Ontario enables students to search for career colleges providing vocational training in the field of interest. Associations and organizations. There are 8 associations in Ontario that provide representation for faculty, staff, institutions, and students by interacting within the structure of higher education in Ontario. Institutional associations established in 1962. The Council of Ontario Universities represents 20 degree granting institutions through a committee consisting of 1 executive and 1 academic from each member institution. The CU supports a wide range of activities regarding issues to enhance the role of universities and collaboration between institutions to increase effectiveness. Colleges Ontario is the Advocacy and Outreach Association of Ontario's 24 colleges of applied arts and technology and 3 college institutes of technology and advanced learning. Faculty associations established in 1964, the Ontario Confederation of University Faculty Associations represents 15,000 teachers, researchers, and librarians through its interaction with the Ontario government, opposition parties, related agencies, and associations. OCUFA allows its 23-member faculty associations to coordinate media relations and research for collective bargaining. In addition, OCUFA publishes the quarterly journal Academic Matters, the monthly electronic newsletter Ontario University Report, and provides research briefs and reports on its website. For advocacy, OCUFA has a separate website entitled Quality Matters. Established in 1974, the Confederation of Ontario University Staff Associations and AMP unions represents non-union and union non-academic staff by providing a forum to share information, workshops, a common lobbying voice, and a method for collective action. In addition, COUSA participates in a coalition for post-secondary education that includes the Ontario Public Service Employees Union and related higher education associations. Student associations established in 1975. The College Student Alliance represents 109,000 students across 23 student associations at colleges in Ontario. The CSA focuses on developing its members and advocacy on issues for students at college and college-university institutions. Established in 1981, the Canadian Federation of Students Ontario represents 300,000 students across 30 student unions in Ontario. The Federation focuses on advocacy through effective research, lobbying, and student mobilization. Established in 1992, the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance represents 155,000 students at 9 Ontario higher education institutions. The Alliance focuses on higher education issues related to accessibility, affordability, accountability and quality. Established in 1995, the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations represents 275,000 students across Canada and 5 student associations in Ontario. Centralized organizations founded in 2005. The Higher Education Quality Council of Ontario is an independent agency funded by the Ontario Ministry of Training, Colleges and Universities and provides recommendations to enhance access, quality and accountability of Ontario's colleges and universities. Founded in 1971, the Ontario Universities Application Centre is an organization acting as a bureau managing applications to universities in Ontario. Ontario College Application Service is a corporation created by the Colleges of Applied Arts and Technology in Ontario. It provides a centralized application system for prospective students. Ontario Council on Articulation and Transfer traces its roots to the College University Consortium Council, which was established in 1996. ONCAT was founded in 2011. It is a coordinating body to develop and maintain a new transfer portal and transfer guide. The purpose is to assist students to transfer between institutions and research and report on credit transfer activity and results. Funding. The public funding of higher education in Ontario primarily relies on cooperation between the Government of Canada and the Government of Ontario. Public funding of higher education involves direct public funding of institutions for instruction, investment, and research combined with funding of students. To fund public higher education institutions, the Government of Ontario can use funds from the Canada Health Transfer, Equalization and Territorial Formula financing programs for financing instruction and investment. Funding of research is supported by the Canada Foundation for Innovation, Canada Research Chairs Program, the Indirect Costs of Research Program, and through networks of Centres of Excellence. Both governments of Canada and Ontario provide funding and support for post-secondary students. Parents receive funding from the Government of Canada to save money for the post-secondary education of their children. The Registered Education Savings Plan is a financial instrument that acts as a tax shelter. The Canada Education Savings Grant provides funds to eligible parents to deposit into a RESP account. The Canada Learning Bond targets assistance to parents less likely to have funds available to contribute to a RESP account. Students may receive funding through Canadian student loans from the Canada-Ontario Integrated Student Loan Program. Grants are targeted bursaries available through the Ontario Student Assistance Program, or funds available from the Canada Millennium Scholarship Foundation. In addition, students with earnings who have previously contributed to a Canadian retirement tax shelter may make tax-free withdrawals under the Canadian tax system using the lifelong learning plan as long as the funds are repaid within a 10-year period. Graduate students may also be eligible for funding through the Ontario Graduate Scholarship Program or by applying for funding through the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council. Students with family incomes below $160,000 are eligible for a 30% off university tuition rebate of $1,780 from the province. Tuition fees in Ontario are higher than any other province in Canada. On average, undergraduate students pay 29% more and graduate students pay 41% more compared to the Canadian average. In the last 20 years, Ontario college tuition fees outpaced inflation by 435% and undergraduate tuition fees by 601%. Universities in Ontario educate more students with less provincial funding per student than any other province. Access and participation. Ontario boasts the highest post-secondary participation and attainment rates among Canadian provinces, ranking high in international comparisons as well. A 2010 report from Statistics Canada, Education Indicators in Canada, and International Perspective, indicates that 63% of Ontario's population aged 25 to 34 have educational attainment to at least the tertiary level as compared to the national average of 56% and the average across OECD countries of 37%. A study commissioned by Colleges Ontario found that, between 2001-02 to 2006-07, 60% of Ontario students enrolled directly in post-secondary programs after 5 years of secondary school. Despite these comparatively strong participation and attainment rates, underrepresented groups in Ontario face access issues that are common around the world. The Higher Education Quality Council of Ontario illustrates that issues such as geography and disability have negative impacts on participation, that may largely relate back to family income and the cost of post-secondary education. But the two most significant factors affecting post-secondary participation in Ontario are parents' level of education and Aboriginal status, factors that relate more to the perception of higher education rather than the actual costs. Ontario's Liberal government and the Ministry of Training, Colleges and Universities embarked on the Reaching Higher plan for post-secondary education in the province beginning in 2005. The plan calls for a $6.2 billion investment in post-secondary education to address such issues as capacity, access, financial assistance and more, including a target post-secondary attainment rate of 70%. Reaching Higher follows the 2005 report by the Honourable Bob Rae, Ontario, a leader in learning, which also sparked the creation of the HEQCO. While current government efforts are intended to address issues of access, the HEQCO warns that a lack of reliable system-wide data will make it difficult to monitor the effects of these efforts and the state of access and participation in the future. One current source of data, Stats Canada's Youth in Transition survey, will soon end, while another Stats Canada source, the Survey of Labour and Income Dynamics, provides less comprehensive data with respect to higher education transitions specifically. In 2014, Ontario post-secondary enrollment fell for the first time in 15 years, with 2.9% fewer students enrolled at universities and 3.5% fewer at community colleges. Mobility and transfer. Ontario has a binary post-secondary education system consisting essentially of universities on one hand and colleges on the other. This binary structure has been long-standing and intentional, with little mobility between the two sides, a characteristic that has been maintained through formidable resistance from universities to develop a more articulated system. Only in recent years have pathways begun to emerge between these two otherwise distinct types of institutions. In 1996, the provincial government initiated the College and University Consortium Council in order to foster closer collaboration between colleges and universities in Ontario. 3 years later, in 1999, the Council of Ontario Universities and the Association of Colleges of Applied Arts and Technology of Ontario jointly endorsed a set of principles governing mobility and transfer that has become known as the Port Hope Accord. In the decade following, a collection of laddering and degree completion agreements had begun to accumulate on the Ontario College-University Transfer Guide. The agreements tend to be very specific between one university and one college. This style of transfer agreement differs from articulated systems such as those in British Columbia and Alberta. The Honourable Bob Ray's 2005 report is Ontario, a leader in learning, makes the most recent call for improvements to student mobility and institutional cooperation. Following government endorsement of the Ray report, in 2011 the CUCC evolved into the Ontario Council on Articulation and Transfer, which has assumed jurisdiction over the OCUTG, now known as the Ontario Post-Secondary Transfer Guide. In a recent study of student perspectives of post-secondary mobility in Ontario published in the Canadian Society for the Study of Higher Education, Professional File, PhD, candidate Christine Arnold writes, transfer pathways have progressed significantly in the province over the last 5 years. Resources and sources for transfer currently do not match this level of care.